Hello, everybody. I am Professor Stefano Mazzoleni, the director of the Museum Center of the Royal Palace of Portici. And this place is, as you know, is one of the royal palace of the Bourbon, built in the 1700s. And it has a special history that is also the reason why Gianluca selected the place for this type of event, because the location was selected by King Charles in front of Vesuvius that those years was erupting, so it was quite suggestive view at the landscape level, but also it was adjacent to the very first excavation of Herculaneum, Oplonti, and follow-up archaeological excavation. So the real reason to have a royal location here was to have a hunting place. There is the park, the forested park going to Vesuvius is 36 hectares that nowadays are used by the agricultural department of the University of Napoli, Federico II. But especially, the palace was dedicated to be the deposit and the restoration factory for everything that was found in Ercolano and in the other excavation in those years. What they were finding was so amazing that the voice started to spread around Europe, and essentially the grand tour from all people coming to Italy to see the beauty of arts and things ended up to reach Portici to see this Herculanense museum that was the very first archaeological museum in the area. Then the statues, the mosaic, the frescoes, things became so numerous, so many, that the place was not sufficient to hold all this material. And so a decision was taken in the following years to move everything to the National Museum of Napoli, that is the actual archaeological museum in the central downtown in Napoli. The place here was at the end of the 1800s, after the unification of Italy, the Parliament of Italy assigned the Royal Palace of Portici for the foundation of the School of Agricultural Science. That was one of the first in Europe. And since 1870, the School of Agriculture was located here, became part of the University of Napoli, Federico II, and nowadays is the Department of Agriculture of the university. We are smiling saying that the time of permanence of the School of Agriculture in this place has been longer than the Bourbon that built the place, because we celebrated 150 years some years ago of presence here. Now, another 2 minutes, and then I give the word to you for your beautiful meeting. This coexistence of a research activity and teaching activity by the Department of Agriculture for more than 150 years in a place that has such a strong genius loci, the original reason was related to archaeology and to the architecture and art that you can see, created a strange mix of stimulus in this place. And so we decided, the University of Napoli decided to establish a new museum center that is named MUSA, Museum of Agricultural Science, Royal Palace of Portici. And the mission of this museum center is, on one side, to represent the collection of scientific findings of the School of Agriculture. And I will open a very small parenthesis on this. One of these activity is related to modeling of ecological dynamics, and the multimedia and the virtual reality reconstruction of ecosystems is part of the exhibit of the Museum of Agricultural Science. The subject is resonating very well with your activity of digital approach for archaeological studies and things like that. The content, the objects that are studied are different, but the digital approach, the mathematical modeling, the reconstruction by mathematical tools of investigation and reinforcing investigation is very much the same, both in science, archaeology, and in other fields. So, having said that, we are so pleased to have meetings like this one that are not exactly in the field of the activity of our agricultural school, but, as I just said, are occasion of creating also hybridization of idea, contacts and stimulus. Kenneth Lapatin of the Getty Foundation was here already some months ago, and it's the exact example of the type of relationship that we like to establish as museum center, university, and other center like this. Gianluca, thanks so much for asking me to have this meeting here, and I just wanted to give you a few words to welcome you and say, please go on with your activities. Thanks.
Thank you. Grazie al professore Mazzoleni. Soltanto I want just to say welcome to the Portici. As I say that as a former president of Ville Vesuviane Foundation, not only a papyrologist today, and I am very happy because this is the area of the Villa of the Papyri, the area of Herculaneum. And when was founded in 1738, this extraordinary Reggia Villa di Portici, I remember the history with which the Charles of Bourbon coming from Torre del Greco on a boat, a ship, and there was a storm, and he stopped here, and he said, I want my Reggia here in Portici. No, Sua Maestà, impossibile, perché c'è il Vesuvio. The Vesuvius is very dangerous. And the king said, ci salveranno San Ciro il protettore di Portici, e San Gennaro. San Gennaro e San Ciro will take care of us. And con questo auspicio vi auguro a tutti noi una buona mattinata in cui ci saranno le due relazioni di Seth Parker e Brent Sills sotto la guida di Christy Chapman, e poi avremo la tavola rotonda più tardi. Quindi grazie a tutti.
Thanks so much, Gianluca. I just want to start briefly by saying on behalf of the University of Kentucky how much we thank you all. Never in a million years when I was a little girl growing up in Hatton, Alabama, did I ever think I would be giving lectures or introducing lectures in such beautiful places as here in the Institut de France, or meeting such wonderful scholars and making lifelong friends who mean so much to me. So I just want to say thank you so much for including us. Thank you to CISPE, the university, and to this beautiful facility. Our first speaker this morning is computer scientist Seth Parker, who many of you know, assistant research professor in a Deuce Lab at the University of Kentucky. He wrote the code and first implemented Volume Cartographer, the foundational software used to accomplish the first virtual unwrapping of an ancient scroll, the scroll from Indelli. He's also been leading a team at UK in a project called HeartLens, which applies our AI techniques to the identification of heart calcification in micro-CT scans. Not only are we at a Deuce Lab interested in closed papyri, we've also been working with the open papyri. We want to create the best digital versions possible for scholars to use in our research. And with a $2 million grant from the MANN Foundation, we began this project back in, it was supposed to start in 2019, but we all know what happened shortly thereafter. Since 22, I guess, we finally got launched. The foundation funded our imaging of the 3,500 open trays of open papyri fragments at the library here, also the 12 trays at the Bodleian Library, and we will eventually also image the open papyri at the Institut de France, and hopefully maybe someday the British Library. So Seth is going to tell you all about that project.
Thank you very much, Christy. Yes, so we all have been hearing yesterday quite a bit about virtual unwrapping, and of course the closed scrolls get a lot of the public attention, but as we all know, there is a lot of material that doesn't get a lot of attention except in this room, right? There are 3,500 trays of opened Herculaneum papyri, and like you want to read the closed material, you also want to read the opened material because it's all one collection. And we've all known for a long time that just looking at this material in person is extremely difficult, but if you apply spectral imaging, you can see a lot of text. This, however, is not sufficient. You all know this. This material is extremely degraded. There is a three-dimensionality to these surfaces that obscures a lot of the visible text, makes reading quite difficult. And we entered this project really wanting to solve some of those issues. But we have to start where it truly begins with the BYU MSI images, because this is the foundational work on which we are building. I've given a version of this talk before, and I had the title here, On the Shoulders of Giants, because truly this work was instrumental to just about everything else that we're doing. We would not be here without this foundation. So the BYU MSI images, though, they're quite beautiful. They are ideal imaging for every piece. And by piece, I don't mean a large tray. I mean every individual piece. All of the fields of view are highly zoomed in on the fragments, and you can see the characters quite clearly. There's very good contrast and very good resolution. However, and they're all in the infrared spectral bands. However, there are some areas for improvement. Because all of these pieces were sort of zoomed in on individually, it necessitated to get a view of the entire cornice, for lack of a better term at the moment. We'll use that broadly to mean a tray of material. You had to stitch all of these images together, which introduces a lot of computational problems, potentially overlapping problems in the stitching. And it's only largely limited to infrared bands. We really would have liked a full, now that we have full multispectral imaging as sort of a commodity, full visible light imaging along with near-infrared imaging, things that have developed in the time since BYU did their imaging. We also want to address the depth problem. Because these are actually three-dimensional surfaces and not truly two-dimensional surfaces, we need some way of capturing that 3D structure which is currently getting flattened in the BYU images. And because of the stitching problem, we don't actually have a consistent metric scale by which we can measure objects easily in these images. That is also sort of imperative if you want to measure across images, measure the shapes of things. Keeping in mind the relative scales of the different local images can be difficult. Ultimately, all of this points towards a common frame of reference for every single tray. We want some sort of backplate on which these BYU images can exist, upon which any future imaging can exist, to sort of link in a common metric frame all of the sort of structure of these materials. So that is what we set out to do. And as Christy mentioned, in 2019 we were awarded a $2 million grant from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation to run the gamut on the entire collection with a consistent, and our goal was to do a consistent imaging setup. No tray was going to get special treatment as much as possible. There are some exceptions, which we will mention. We also wanted to get a new set of spectral images that were also imaged consistently. We wanted to get 3D models of every single tray. And we wanted to update the sort of digital catalog. What right now exists in Cartes, which is extensive in its own right, we wanted to verify that information. The curse of Herculaneum strikes again. Yes, we wanted to verify all of the information that's in that catalog as we're imaging and touching every piece and update it if there are any discrepancies. So both imaging and metadata are involved in all of this. Our physical setup in the library, if you have not been over there and seen it, we have a 50 megapixel Megavision multispectral camera, and we're capturing from 420 nanometers, so sort of down in the violet range, up to 1050 nanometers, which is now the sort of limit of what you can capture in the infrared range with a normal silicon photography detector. And we have two custom photogrammetry scanners, which well, I'll indicate in a slide later, are over in the right-hand side of this image. And not quite explored yet as much is we also brought a flatbed scanner to capture all of the photographs of the trays that have been captured over time, this historical record of what the trays look like in the past. So both photographic negatives and positives that were captured. And the spectral imaging, if you've been in here, you know, the spectral, I can't go back now. Oh, well. The spectral camera was in that large black box that's there in the back. It's a curtained off blackout room for the spectral imaging. So it's not very easy to get a good picture of it, but here's the inside where a tray would sit on its imaging table and imaging platform. It is a 50 megapixel system, and the goal was we want the entire cornice in the field of view for every tray. So we don't have the stitching problem. We just have one image at the consistent scale across all trays. Because of this, it's actually not the highest resolution, that it doesn't match the resolution, so to speak, of the BYU imaging, but it does let us have that metric frame of reference for any sort of image alignment that we want to do later, including aligning the BYU images on top of this, and perhaps improving the stitching in places where it is not quite so obvious now how to do that stitching. And we captured 16 spectral bands, as I said, in that violet to infrared range, creating a full image stack. That was supposed to be a video showing you the image stack there on the side. Will it play? We'll see if any of these videos play. It's going to be very disappointing if they don't. Out of the spectral processing, if anyone has done multispectral imaging or is familiar, one of the nice byproducts is you have a series of grayscale images that show you what the tray looks like under every single narrow spectral band. So an image of violet light, an image of blue light, an image of red light. And from that, you can construct what we call a so-called true color image. The images that you get off a normal photographic camera are an approximation of what the human eye sees. But this is actually a scientific measurement of the reflectance of the object under each wavelength of light. And from that, you can reconstruct its actual true color as if it were in a broad light source. And you can measure that color. It's not just an appearance. It is actually measurable. The other thing that we have out of the spectral processing are enhancements to the infrared images. The infrared images that come off the camera are very high dynamic range. So if you were to just look at them on your computer, they would look rather underwhelming. It's great if you want to download one of those images and load it into Photoshop, which you do frequently as papyrologists, I understand. But we also just wanted to provide, here are some enhancements that make it look great. And so we have taken the 1050 nanometer image and have generated, over a period of time, developed these 4 enhancement modes, which we apply to every single tray as a post-processing step to just say, here is 4 different enhancements. We originally set out to just find one enhancement. But consistently, we heard from everyone who got sort of preview access to this data that having the different enhancements actually helped to sort of work on the text over time. That one image alone might be fine on certain portions, but being able to switch back and forth could actually enhance their reading of the text. The photogrammetry systems were custom-built systems that we designed at Kentucky. And their goal also was not about resolution so much as it was getting sufficient resolution to resolve some of these surface features, add back that depth that was missing, and to try to image the 3,500 trays quickly, relatively quickly. This was a very difficult optimization technique for us because, as you can imagine, imaging 3,500 objects for 3D manually would be quite time expensive. So this system is entirely automated. The trays sit in this platform. The operator enters some metadata about what the object is, and then they click start, and the entire thing is automated after that. The camera head is 5 angled cameras, 1 pointing face down, and 4 angled view cameras pointing at the same spot. And then that gives you an image something like this and for the down-facing camera. And here are the angled view cameras for the same spot. So these multi-views actually let you reconstruct the 3D shape for that portion of the screen. That video is playing, great. So that camera head is then swept in a grid-like pattern over the entire surface of the trays. This takes about 6 to 7 minutes per tray and produces around 1,000 images for every single tray. And if you reconstruct that 3D model, you get something like this. One of the nice byproducts of having a 3D textured model is that you can also then just turn that into a normal image like you would want to look at. You don't have to look at it in 3D. And in fact, you can collapse all that 3D depth also into an image. So if you want to compare the text versus the 3D depth, you can actually just do that in image space if you don't necessarily want to operate in the 3D model. For all of you who've had the preview data, this is new. We have not actually gotten feedback on how useful this is, but we're going to provide it because it's easy to provide. And we think that it would actually perhaps help in some places where you want to flip back and forth between depth and texture quite quickly. Another thing that we have not talked about much, because it was also a little experimental, is our down-facing camera wasn't just capturing the sort of normal white light view. It was also capturing infrared images itself at infrared 940 nanometers, which was sort of the traditional infrared imaging domain. So for all of those image positions that we captured, we have this down-facing image, and we can take this 3D model and texture it with that infrared image as well. So this is also a new model, which the preview people have not had before. So I'm also excited to see what you think of these images. These are will be higher resolution in terms of number of pixels than the spectral images that we captured. But they are also a little bit blurred because we couldn't refocus for the infrared light sort of on the fly. So they'll be a little bit blurry, but also more pixels. So I think it'll average out to about the same, but also a different view, right? It's another set of images that you can use to sort of flip between as you're working on a text. And likewise, we can generate a flattened version of that image set, sort of stitched together from the photogrammetry calibration. The next step is the obvious step. We want to make sure that we can align all of these domains together. So we have taken all the spectral images and aligned them to the 3D models so that you get the same 3D model with the RGB image and the infrared 1050 enhancements. Any of the spectral images are, in theory, automatically aligned to the 3D model once you've done it once. We are only providing the infrared images aligned right now because they seem the most useful. But by request, this is something that could be easily computed if you want any of the other spectral bands. The way that we imagine this actually working in the future is that you would take the entire spectral stack, perhaps use a machine learning model to learn an enhancement of the text, and then project that onto the 3D model. So any sort of downstream work can just fall onto this backplate automatically because of the alignment we've already done. And if you've not seen the 3D models, had a chance to play with them yourself, here's an animation of sort of what sort of depth you get with that, with the infrared 1050 on it. So there are a few of you in this room who have worked with this material. If you would raise your hand for the moment so that others can see you. Yes? So look at these people and go ask them what they think. If you're interested in this data, ask them what they think about the data and what sort of opportunities it opens up. Thomas, this is a piece that you are particularly interested in, I know, because we talked about it in Utah. It was on my laptop and therefore became the example, so you were getting a nice little preview. You may have noticed this little wedge in the top corner of all our images. During imaging, we needed a way to keep track of which objects we were imaging through the entire process. And this was really for making sure that our data that we collected was of high quality. If we noticed an issue with something, we could track back easily to what object actually got missed as part of that process. And also to avoid an ambiguity, which is once you take these trays outside of their sort of normal Corniche case, they are no longer identified, right? That while they're in the lab it is possible to have a human error where something gets swapped into the wrong thing. We didn't want to have to re-image an object entirely, so we set this up where this label provides a unique ID for the object, and then we have a metadata table that actually maps that unique ID to what object we think it is. So if we later find out, oh, we mislabeled in the file name what this is, we can just relink the unique ID to the actual object it is. And we don't have to re-image anything. We can automatically rename files if we need to. And backing all of that is an additional linking into the object metadata that was sort of originally scraped from Cartez, and which we have extended with new metadata columns and updated as we were imaging. The ultimate goal of all of this was to build a graph database for every part of the collection that we were touching. This is going to be very disappointing if that doesn't play. Yeah, I don't know. It's not going back, no. Oh. Yeah, so here in the middle we have 1428, our example piece. The cornice sort of listed around it as a graph. If you click in each of them, you can see the metadata that we've collected about just that cornice there on the side. And if you click into it, there is our unique ID for the object. And then those are all the data sets that have been produced for that object. So if we had to re-image something, there would be another node right there that would say, here's the second imaging. And they would all sort of point back through the unique ID to the cornice. If we needed to renumber, we would just point that unique ID to a different cornice, and it would all sort of flow. It's very nice for data scientists to have this sort of flexibility, and especially with the interesting ways in which these things have been cataloged in the past. It can make some things like renumbering p-Herc number, for instance, much easier to model than it would be in a sort of strict table. Oh no, now I don't know what I've done. All right. But additionally, we also have object metadata. If we look at everything connected to 1428, we also have all of that object metadata alongside the cornice. So you can see here, the style is the node I decided to click into. And if we open that up, we can easily link it to all the other things in that group. So we can start at some point to start exploring the collection by the connections that are sort of in everyone's brain right now. Right? You all are experts and know how all of these things connect. But there are perhaps connections which are 2 or 3 nodes downstream of where you are that could become quite obvious when you have this sort of view of how everything is connected. And you can see there the node details on the side of all of the things that were in that big metadata spreadsheet are integrated into this view in this database. So to summarize, for the opened Papiri, we will have a spectral image set, a spectral image stack, an RGB image, infrared enhancements of all the trays, photogrammetry images, infrared photogrammetry images, 3D models of the photogrammetry. Oh, PowerPoint has decided to not even show these images, so that's how exclusive this is. Fun. Anyway, infrared photogrammetry images, all the downstream sort of images that you get, like the depth image from just the photogrammetry model alone, and then also this graph database all on top of it, connecting all of it. And eventually, when we have enough time, the BYU images will also be integrated into all of this. So of course, the big question is, how do I get it? How do you, as researchers, get access to this? Our sort of short-term plan is that the object metadata and sort of web versions of all the images are going to go through Cartez. So we're working with Gianluca to connect our database to the Cartez database and sort of feed information going forward. For the images themselves, as you can imagine, we had 40 to 50 terabytes of just raw images. And each processed data set is itself many gigabytes per tray, so more terabytes, probably double the size. So as of right now, we're going to provide them sort of by request as they become available through our processing pipeline. But we are looking to figure out a nice scalable way to make those available to everyone just through a web interface. So that's sort of the ongoing work. Now, I said that this was our goal for most of the normal objects. We captured around 3,400 of the Cornice. We have about 160 left that we've identified through the graph database as having sort of data set issues. Either we missed a tray when we were imaging, or a file got corrupted and transferred and we need to re-image it, something like that. But 160 out of 3,500 is not bad, I think, for a fully, mostly automated process. And of course, there are some objects which just can't be imaged this way. This scroll in particular is still a sort of engineering challenge, and we're taking one of our systems home this week, our photogrammetry system, to try to re-engineer it in order to do this scroll. And of course, as Christy already mentioned, there are fragments in other institutions which we need to travel to in order to capture the full collection. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the timeline. We deployed our first system in Naples in November of 2022. This was one of the first photogrammetry systems. And it took us a year to actually sort of get up and operational and get all of our systems in place and the data backend in place so that we could actually start imaging. So in November of 2023, we actually started. And by June of 2023, the vast majority of those objects were captured. So in about a 6-month span, our Neapolitan team, who are incredible, blew through this collection at a rate of an average of 31 trays per day, manually moving these trays between each of these imaging systems, 31 trays a day. And that peaked at one point at 59 trays on a single day, which is just an incredible rate for that amount of time. After this period, we also performed conservation on the Oslo fragments in the library. So we've taken, well, not taken them off the rice paper, but we've now fixed the rice paper onto backer boards so that they could be imaged in these systems. And so imaging resumed in October of 2025. And we've since captured another 219 of those fragments. And there are still a few fragments remaining also in that collection of sort of missing data, but we are largely complete here. But I wanted to bring this up because this timeline would not have been possible if it hadn't been for the incredible team that we had. I think the biggest takeaway for me is how collaborative everyone here in Naples has been, how supportive everyone in Naples has been, and how willing to sort of take the leap with us that this was something that could be done and that should be done. That's not always been the case in our experience across many institutions. It often takes a lot of convincing to sort of see the value in something like this. And so I want to just acknowledge, this was the only image I had of our team. It's not everyone, so I'm sorry for those of you who are missing. But I want to take a moment to just acknowledge and applaud all of you, because I'm standing up here presenting your work, and I am so incredibly proud to have worked with you on this project. So thank you very much.
Okay, we can take a couple questions, I think, if people have a question. If you want, I'll grab a microphone. If not, we'll move on. Oh, Federica?
Thank you so much. I'm very excited by the new images, the new models using all the shots taken from the photogrammetry system, as you know, because we've talked about that several times. And I was wondering, how difficult it was to stitch those images, and if you're having the same difficulties that you were mentioning also for the BYU images.
Not as difficult. Okay. Not as difficult as I thought it would be. It turns out, well, it doesn't turn out, this makes sense, and I should have thought of it sooner. But because we've already, through the photogrammetry process, calibrated where every one of those cameras are on the camera head, it's really a simple matter of just retexturing using only the ones from the infrared center camera. So all the same process that generated the photogrammetry texture is just reused, but with different image set, basically. So you sort of get it for free. But one of the improvements that's been made broadly across the alignment is that before, when we were doing the spectral image alignment to the 3D models, we were sort of doing this image-to-image alignment and registration. But I have since switched to also calibrating the spectral camera into the photogrammetry scene, so we can also just project the spectral data directly on the model, and the alignment is much improved because of that process. So I hope that if any of you have seen places where the textures from the spectral camera don't quite align with the model, that that is actually now completely gone, and we should get sort of pixel perfect alignment across. I always think these things are going to work perfectly, and then there's always that one tray that it doesn't. So we'll find out. But yes, it should be dramatically improved in version 2, as I'm calling it. So.
Amazing progress. Oh, did you get it?
It's on now.
Oh, that one. Okay. That's amazing progress and so impressive. I had early experience with reflectance transformation imaging, and I'm interested in Federica's question because I think mine bears on the same question in a way. The reflectance transformation images, RTI, were wonderful to work with. I had one Cornici, I think, of Papyrus 994, but they fell apart digitally. They would sort of collapse on your computer. I suppose this bears on the question of whether the ordinary end user is going to have enough computer power to handle this amazing trove of material that you're putting together. So that's my question, but congratulations on what you've done.
Thank you. It's a very important question. The 3D models themselves are large by 3D model standards. I believe that tray in particular was around 500 megabytes for that, plus the texture image itself can be another dozens of megabytes, depending on the resolution. So it, as you can see, it looked a little laggy up here in the 3D model video. That was actually on my Mac. That was my Mac doing that. That was not just the presentation being glitchy or something. So there is some question there. Now, I do think that our 3D models are currently perhaps oversampled, that we can reduce the size of those pretty dramatically and still not see very much degradation in sort of the surface quality that we're getting. So I think we can find a sort of happy medium there, that there's still some optimization there to be explored. Similarly, I think he has another question, Christy, just saying. Yeah, follow up. Well, I wanted to make a quick note about the RTI, is the RTI can provide some of the depth cues that are not easy to get in photogrammetry. Photogrammetry tends to want to fit a pretty broad, smooth model, where RTI can give you very local depth. And there are techniques to sort of enhance the photogrammetry models when you have sharper depth images sort of already aligned. So I think that's a potential future work as well.
My quick follow-up was, will this work on the Mac?
On Mac?
Macintosh.
Yes, I am a Mac user. I design everything to run on Mac. It's the Windows people who have to really watch out, actually.
Okay, we're just going to do a couple more quickly.
Hi. It was a really interesting presentation. I'm a physicist, so I just have a question about the setup. So I'm slightly confused because, I mean, is it just passive filtering? So you just get the light that's being reflected and then you use filters, or do you actually do active illumination of the papyrus? Because I was a bit confused because you did it in this in a light environment in the library, and I would have thought that if I would have done it, I would be a completely dark room and then shine a certain light on it, very intensive, and then you get a much clearer signal. So I haven't really read your thing, so maybe you can just clarify if it's active filtering or illumination.
It is active lighting. So for the primary spectral camera, we have the light tent, and inside of there are LED panels where the LEDs are narrow bands for specific spectra. So all the way through. So we capture in sequence under only that illumination in the large spectral system. On the photogrammetry system, that is a broad light source. Well, it's the infrared 940 illuminates, and there's no other filtering sort of on top of that. So if there is any ambient light in the room, that will also sort of influence the measurement you get back. That one is not a scientific measurement. That's really more for the appearance sake that we captured that. So that one, that was a sort of last minute where we have an opportunity to capture 940 alongside our photogrammetry. We should just do it and not worry so much because we have this other spectral data set that is sort of constrained in the nice ways that it needs to be for multispectral. Does that make sense?
Is it a dark room?
No,
okay, because what you showed was a light.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back to that slide. Oh, hey, there's some of them. Hey. Love it.
While you're looking for that, we'll take Kim's question.
Yeah, so this is the table inside our imaging tent. It has just a light source on. Yeah, this is the imaging tent, and it has a light source on just while we put the tray in. It blacks out. Yeah. But.
Seth, I want to add my congratulations and admiration. I was particularly interested in the fact that you seem to have really created kind of a one-stop shop with all of these levels. And I wanted to ask you to elaborate just a little bit further on when you had that sort of star-shaped, graph of all the data, you went off into historical resources and clicking through earlier publications or groups of attributions to different hands, which strikes me as an incredible tool, not only for future research, but for historiographic research. And I wondered if you could just elaborate a little bit on that, because you went through it quite quickly, but that seems to me to be a huge resource, in addition to all the imaging you've done of the layering and the capturing of that history.
Yeah, so really we should ask Christy this question, because Christy and Federica, really the papyrological team, because they built that metadata table which fed into all of that. Our portion, my portion, I can talk a lot about how we connected the data sets to that and the structure we have with that, but the broader, the really interesting part that I think you're zeroing in on is really more Christy's work.
Yeah, just as we did the imaging, Federica's team of, I think all of them at some point were responsible for putting in all of the descriptive metadata about the objects, and actually Roger Macfarlane helped us build the table where we captured that, and then they supplemented it with other items that they felt like would be of interest to people as they viewed these images. And yeah, eventually the idea is that all of this will be available in a digital catalog, and when you click on and when you upload an image, you'll be able to access all of those points and get all of the information you need and see all the connections. I mean, I think that's one of the really powerful things, is it visualizes the connections, between the which papyri are associated with this hand or this particular designe artist, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
There is the possibility that as our data sets grow over time, that you could make a query that's something like, show me all the images that include this passage of text. And it could just be automatically propagated through that sort of graph database. through this extra metadata that we're capturing.
Seth so much. I just also want to give a shout out to Seth because he's done all this work with basically one part-time computer scientist helping him. So, and you heard him say how much data there is. It's not been an easy project. So now I'm going to introduce a man who needs no introduction, obviously, the Stanley and Karen Pigman Endowed Chair of Heritage Science and Professor of Computer Science, Brent Seals. Dr. Seals is the inventor of virtual unwrapping, the founding director of Schmidt Sciences Humanities and AI Virtual Institute, the PI and executive director of Aduse Lab, an $18 million heritage science laboratory funded by the NSF and the NEH, and with help from the University of Kentucky. He is also a very exciting, fairly recent development. Also, a co-investigator. So sorry, I've had a cold. With Federica Nicolardi and Vincent Christline on the 13 million euro? 11 million, sorry. 11 million, I always think big, Federica. 11 million euro European Research Council Synergy Grant to develop next generation technologies for virtual unwrapping of Herculaneum papyri, including the hidden layers in open fragments. So hopefully we'll soon have new layers to add to all of these open papyri. And then also the project is going to create advanced digital editions of the text. So our work on Herculaneum goes beyond what the virtual unwrapping in the Vesuvius Challenge. And Dr. Seals is now going to talk about the path forward. Dr. Seals.
Thank you, Christy. Just to connect to Seth's talk, the reporters are now not in the room, so I can say that we did run out of money to complete that work, and we thought we would get a follow-on grant from MANN to take everything and make the full catalog. MANN pivoted in their interest in the time that we were working on the project. So if there are people in the audience who would like to work with us full-time on this project to create the catalog, make it available publicly, and then help us support it, I'd like you to identify yourselves to me sometime today, and then we're going to go get money so that we can actually do that work. And we're really excited about it. Today I'm going to talk about the path forward of virtual unwrapping, and I want to acknowledge that we are appealing to a younger generation. In fact, we're starting with your children.
Gianluca's not here. He had to step out.
Gianluca's not here, but that's too bad he didn't see this picture. Nat and his brilliance and the Vesuvius Challenge team put together a Lego set of the Villa of the Papyri. If you're interested in that and you want to appeal to the younger generation, send an email to Giorgio and see if you can buy the Lego set. It's actually really important when you talk about the path forward to think about the next generation. So I'm going to try to frame for you the phases of virtual unwrapping so that we can just establish what I think about the path forward. And of course, the path forward is going to involve the Vesuvius Challenge. Clearly, this program with Nat Friedman and the amazing team, many of whom are still here with us in the audience, is an incredible effort, the work of which we do not want to lose. So we have to find a way to capture everything that's being invested and everything that's being done so that the path forward includes a durable change in the field and something that's going to be very positive. So we have the Vesuvius Challenge, and we will also have Unlost. And because I have feet in both of those areas, that will be my place to be able to try to make the virtual unwrapping path forward happen. But I'd like you all to consider as well the partnerships that make sense so that we can actually build what I think would be a really interesting field-wide or even worldwide kind of consortium around at least the part of the technical approaches that we've worked on that might affect the work that you're doing and change the calculus. So the phases of virtual unwrapping, very quick historical review to get us to the path forward. My first experiment was in the first 3 years of this century with something I made, paint on canvas. And then thanks to Richard Janko and the University of Michigan collection, we did a fragment which was a bookbinding. And our prototype software was able to read the backside of a piece of parchment that had been found inside the binding of a book. We went to Herculaneum via Paris and the Institut de France in the interval from 2007 to 14 and made images for the first time of Piri 3 and 4. But we were not successful at reading the text. What we were able to do was to see the internal structure and define the problem a little bit better. For us, the breakthrough on virtual unwrapping was the scroll from Engheti. It was 2014 to 16. And we returned to Herculaneum with better tools and with machine learning, which involved scans at Diamond, partnership in Paris, and partnership with the Getty, notably Ken Lepatin, who's here, who allowed us to write for the catalog and included us in the actual exhibit called Buried by Vesuvius, which we all know actually meant Herculaneum. And final phases include the Vesuvius Challenge, where we broke through with the grand prize and we established the word purple. And we also are now scaling up, and that brings us to present day. So the path forward starts now. To show you this on a graph, I want to make it clear that origins in 2000 to the path forward in almost 2030 represents 3 decades worth of evolution. 3 decades. And in the first decade, you know, I had 3 people working with me, maybe 5 people when we worked with Richard, maybe 5 people when we did the work with Engheti, maybe 6 people when we scaled up and went back to Herculaneum. And then when we worked with the Vesuvius Challenge, courtesy Nat Friedman, Daniel Gross, and the team we have, we were able to increase that number to 2,000. You see why it's been so important, right? To be able to change the calculus, change the timeline. And now we don't really know, but Nat threw down the gauntlet yesterday with another $1 million prize. And so, you know, the path forward largely includes us managing this properly so that we can capture the good results that are going to come by the scale up that is happening now. So here's the outline for my talk. First, best only. If you study business, you'll find out that you need to have one of these things to succeed. Your product needs to be either the first, it needs to be the best, or it needs to be the only one. I would argue that virtual unwrapping is all 3 of these, actually. Okay, so let's start with first. Okay, this is Piri 4, and it was the first scroll we ever scanned. It's also the first scroll we've ever read a word from inside of, and you saw yesterday, it's one of the first that we've ever read the entire scroll. We've unwrapped the whole thing. And this is not easy, right? This is a hard problem. So to be first on something that's so hard is something that we can establish and then leverage in the future. This is just an example of what these cross sections look like and why it's so hard with the software to make it work. Let me just remark that the library knows this. Pioneering is messy. This is a video on the left or right-hand side. Is this touch sensitive? I'd like to play this. How do I play this video? I have a keyboard. Oh yeah, perfect. This is the renovation of the Officina. You guys remember this, right? Sometimes you have to make a mess to move forward, right? I mean, that's just what pioneers do. So you have a library that is pioneering, right, in what they would like to do with the collection. And in order to do that pioneering work, you know, you have to go up a notch, right? So this is us walking through the area, and that might be even audio that you're hearing. I don't remember.
Completely empty.
That's me talking. Okay. Well, let's not hear any more of that talking. I don't know what I said. The Vesuvius Challenge guys are here, and you know I'm not going to put them on the spot, but you guys are pioneering work in virtual unwrapping, and I know that digitally you've created many messes somewhere, right? And It's exciting to discover, right? But in this first phase of you create messes because both pioneering and discovering is exciting. So here's some guiding principles for the phase which I call first, and that is we've focused on problem solving. We've focused on open source, but I put that in quotes, and you'll understand why in a minute. And then we focus on speed over organization. And so when you look at the Vesuvius Challenge team and what Nat's inspired, these are a distillation of some of the guiding principles. We're interested in solving the problems. They're not all completely solved yet. We're interested in creating code that is available, and we're interested in moving fast. So if you look at the timeline again of virtual unwrapping, I would say the entire timeline so far is firsts. Okay? From the very beginning all the way till yesterday, we're doing firsts. Okay, but that's going to change when we go forward, and so now we need to think about best. Okay, so what do I want to say about best? Well, here's an unwrapping. This one didn't show yesterday because apparently my aura is strong enough to bring down live streams. But Jordy made this video. It's really wonderful because it gives you the kind of sense of the unwrapping part and then how this data looks with the naked eye, and then what happens when the AI works. And when the AI sort of turns on, which should happen in this video about now, if the video is actually playing, it shows the actual text available. So there it is. This computer is struggling to play this video, but it's supposed to fade in the AI. There it is. Okay, now I would ask you, you see this and it looks great, and it's the first time we've ever seen this, but is it the best? I mean, Jürgen, you're looking at me and you're smiling because you're a papyrologist and you're like, I don't want to mess with this image until I know it's the best one you can get, right? Because it takes too much time, right? To decide, make decisions, and then find out, oh, there's another one and it's better, right? So I would say that guiding principles now for best would be that we have to focus now on optimal problem solving, right? Like, what's our notion of the best we can do? And let's codify that so that by agreement, the technical team and the papyrologists are synchronized. The technical team says, this is, we believe, the best we can do. We're not going to provide you with 15 alternatives and not know. We're going to guarantee that there's a small set of things we think are optimal, and we're going to give you those, and we're going to ensure that what we've given you is that, so that we're all in agreement. And then we're going to move toward open source without the scare quotes. It's not going to be messy pioneering, right? But it's going to be curated open source so that we can actually bring in these 2,000 people, not just on competitions, but also in contributing to the feature set, right, of what this software can do. These guys are 24/7, the Vesuvius Challenge guys, trying to do pioneering work, and they don't always have time to create a new button or a new key, a shortcut, or a way to export something that would be more convenient. Those are features that we can curate when we move toward best, making the software as well as the data sort of best. And then the third guiding principle here is that we might sacrifice speed in this new phase of going forward in the service of optimization so that we can say we've taken the time to make this be the best it can be. So we're going to move out of draft mode because we're interested in best, and we're going to try to actually do that. What's the production path for generating, releasing, and versioning and tracking a best result? This is an open question. We don't have an answer yet. But in the future of virtual unwrapping, we need to answer this question. All right, I'll finish with only. We want our approach to be the one that everyone comes to for their virtual unwrapping problems. If you can make your software be the one that everyone uses, right, then however it branches off, there's always a core of interest and of excellence that comes back to you. So we will always be first. We want to be best, and we want to be only. Here's a quote for you that was in the press yesterday. Even with the most successful methods available to physically unwrap the scrolls and read them, one had to damage them. But with virtual unwrapping, we are no longer forced to choose between preserving and reading these extraordinary artifacts. We can do both. Who said this? You're right, you did. Good job, Federica. And what this means is that this right now is the only approach. And because we've invested all the money into making that approach possible, we want it to continue to be the only place people go for virtual unwrapping. And virtual unwrapping is hard. So we want to hang on to our advantage in being able to control in an open way how to curate the optimization and the involvement of many people if we can possibly do that. So we have this engine for discovery that implements all of these pieces embodied in what we call volume cartographer. So I would lay down the challenge to the Vesuvius Challenge team to help us move toward a way where we solidify our position as the only place people will come for their virtual unwrapping efforts. So this is going to require us to innovate the software and the framework, maybe in ways that expand capability. It'll also require us to provide examples that will let people see different data and different techniques. It will involve continued open development and ultimately digital provenance so that it's possible to track something from its inception and in digital capture to the final texture claim. All right, so I'll finish by saying scrolls aren't the only thing at the end of the day that virtual unwrapping will be useful for. We've talked a lot about the scrolls this week because we're in Naples. This is the scroll from Engaddi. These are the scrolls at Oxford. There's much work remaining on just scrolls, and virtual unwrapping will be a key to unlock it. But there are some other things, and I want to finish by maybe expanding your sense of what virtual unwrapping can do, and then maybe helping you understand why being best and being only is something I'm really interested in. What is this? Can't tell what this is supposed to be. Okay. This is a fragment of a scroll from the Dead Sea Scroll collection. Unknown, unclear what the text is. Okay, so a scroll, but in some other collection other than Herculaneum. This is a copy of The Sea Wolf, written by Jack London, and it contains editor's remarks and Jack London's remarks by hand, but it was carbonized in a safe deposit box in the fire of San Francisco, in the 1906 fire of San Francisco. And you know, he thought by putting it in a bank's safety deposit box, it would be safe. And we could still read some of this writing if we could use virtual unwrapping. This is a sheaf of papers found on a cadaver from the failed Franklin expedition, where the entire party was lost in searching for the Northwest Passage. No one's ever read what might be inside those papers. Cartonnage exists everywhere from the ancient world, and has shown to have produced some really interesting fragments, and I think many of you know this, but so another opportunity for virtual unwrapping. Here is a binding of a medieval manuscript which we scanned, early manuscript, I think maybe 5th century. It's from the Morgan Library's collection. And having imaged it with tomography, we were able to read every page using virtual unwrapping. It's just showing you sort of the binding structure, which was the key thing interesting to the conservators at the time. But as I show this video of the binding and then the pages, you can see lots of activity where the text is actually showing up, and we know we can virtually unwrap it and read every page. It's not a scroll, it's a medieval, it's a codex, but it's still really hard to physically open, and so virtual unwrapping can play a role. Dead Sea Scroll Collection has 20,000 fragments, like the one I'm pointing my finger at, and we scanned one of them. It looks like this in cross-section. This is tiny, tiny little fragment. We segmented some of the layers, And so this is a cross-sectional view of that segmentation. And time? And
It's okay. Oh, sorry. I misread Gianluca's sign language. Keep going. It's okay.
okay, I can quit now if you want.
No. He says
Okay.
it's okay.
So check out the virtual unwrapping of a couple of layers of this fragment. It's a big puzzle to take all 20,000, categorize all the layers, read them, and then maybe put together something that's never been accomplished before because of the fragmentary nature of this collection. 20,000 is a big number, so this could be a really interesting virtual unwrapping problem. All right, I'm going to end with this. I hope this blows your mind. It kind of blows mine. And this really harks back to Seth, because Seth did this work. But we did a project with the Museum of Modern Art where they found photographic negatives from Etienne Jules Marais, a pioneer in photography. And these photographic negatives are so brittle and they're rolled up that you can't open them physically. Yeah, I do walk around and think about virtual unwrapping all the time, okay? I am that guy, right? Okay, so in the history of photography, what we're talking about is sort of the late 1800s with early film. So it's, 50 years after sort of the pioneering development of photography. You have these early emulsions that got really brittle over the last 150 years. And so here's Marais, and to put this in context, this is about when Muybridge at Stanford was taking the photographs of the horse running, showing that all the legs were off the ground at the same time. So this is what the film looks like, and it's badly damaged and without serious physical intervention. Of course, you know that you can't make a print from a photographic negative without flattening it out and using a light table. The silver halide is the thing, having been developed, that blocks the light and creates the content of the image. And this is what it looks like microscopically to see the information in that film. So we took some of the film, and a roll looks about the size of a small magic marker or a cigar, and we put it in our CT scanner. Is it now time? Okay. This is what the cross sections look like. So now, all of you scroll people are starting to see, well, this looks a lot like a scroll, yeah? My hammer, and I found a new nail. Okay, here is the volume that represents that scan, and here is a virtually unwrapped section of that film. The X-ray actually reveals the content of the emulsion without any further processing. Whenever I see this, kudos to Seth for having done this work, but when I see these pictures, it reminds me of the film Dead Poets Society, where Robin Williams brings everybody in and they look in the case at the photographs of all the people who are no longer here because it's been that long ago. And then they marvel at how time has gone by. And guess what? Being in Kentucky, wasn't it nice to find out that Etienne Marais actually photographed horses? And here is one of the frames that he was photographing at the time. This is straight from virtual unwrapping. Okay, so I hope that might blow your mind a little bit about the future of virtual unwrapping. Thank you very much.
We are at the coffee break moment, so I'm going to ask that if you have questions for Brent, speak to him there, but I think maybe we can take one. Do we have time for one question? Yeah? Okay. Dr. Hammerschmidt.
Yeah, well, just a short question. There is an immense amount of data now. What about the storage and the chance to preserve this for the next, not just 50, but 100 and 200 years?
Yeah, it's a huge problem. Right now, courtesy of Nat Friedman, our storage is all at Amazon. Is that right, Jordy? And oh, Nat, you're here. And it's expensive, right? It's a problem. So what are we going to do about that? Wait, get the microphone so everyone can hear you.
Yeah, I think we have, I don't know, 5 petabytes? Is it more than that?
Yeah, between 4 and 5.
About 4 or 5 petabytes of data in Vesuvius Challenge now that we all store in S3 and Amazon, and it's expensive, unfortunately, to do that. Amazon was nice enough to donate $500,000 in AWS credits to the project at one point, but we've blown through those pretty aggressively. And so I think we'll have to look for a cheaper storage solution. But the good news is they have massive redundancy, and there's probably no safer place to store the data. It's just a little bit expensive to keep it there. And they charge for egress, which means that we have this double-edged blade, which is like we want people to access the data and download it, but then it costs us a lot of money when they do that. And so anyway, there's better solutions out there. This was just the most expedient. Like I'm confident that storing the data is the least expensive part of the project. So I think we'll be fine on that.
Thank you, Nat. And you know, the data does get more consolidated and therefore smaller as you go up the organizational hierarchy. So you saw the metadata graph. If you're using that to operate at a fairly high level, that's cheap because it's small. And if you don't need to dig down to, say, the original, 2-micron, scans from ESRF, then we might actually be able to operate at a fairly high level at pretty low cost. So Richard had a question.
For a target you might want to add to the future prospects. And that's this, and I say it in the presence of all the technical experts. One of the things that the makers of Herculaneum scrolls did was when they didn't have a central umbilicus, they folded the roll, the papyrus on itself, so at 180 degrees. And that's why we haven't been reading the titles of these works. If we can read the titles, the press is going to be more interested and it's going to really help. So I would beg people to remember that in the very inner part of the scroll, you may actually get stuff that's not a spiral, but folded onto itself many times over. And then I had a slightly larger point. I hope all you computer guys who are concerned about preserving the data over the long time, as we should be, all keep in mind that thing called the Carrington event. You know what that is, I hope?
You're putting me on the spot, and I'm not exactly sure what it is.
Okay,
so,
everybody in the computer
world... But I think you're going to tell us, right?
Everybody in the computer world needs to know about this. It was in the 1857, I think. They just put in the telegraph from Boston to Washington and from London to Calcutta. And all of a sudden, the people operating the telegraph lines got electrocuted. And, and then there was an astronomer in Havana who happened to look up at the sky and saw the northern lights. And what it was a solar storm. And in 2012, the world was nearly hit by another of these. It missed us. But the CIA and Lloyd's of London got together to calculate what this would have cost the US economy because of wiped out data, because it was a magnetic storm that lasted long enough to cover the whole globe because the world turned. And it was $30 trillion. And you can protect against it by keeping all the data in a Faraday cage, but it needs to be done. And I once flew on a transatlantic flight next to a computer engineer who had never heard of this stuff and was, and it doesn't seem that it's penetrated the computer community. I mean, we could replicate the Carrington event by throwing nuclear weapons at each other. We don't need to. It's out there. It's a natural phenomenon, and it happened in 1857. 2012 isn't that much longer. So humanity does need to protect its data. And it needs to be inside a mountain somewhere, inside a Faraday cage, inside the mountain.
No question. I think we should take our thoughts of global disaster into the coffee, but let me say that I know Nat has experience in this area because he took the entire GitHub repository of source code to such a facility. He did that in person when he was the CEO of GitHub. So we should talk to Nat about these issues. Thanks very much.
I believe Gianluca has a announcement he would like to make.
I know that for somebody of you there is a problem to transfer and to travel this afternoon. But if we go to the coffee break just now, we arrange just after lunch. Our lunch there will be half an hour or just a little more. We arrange one visit, at least one visit at a part of this marvelous building. And there is still an open agricultural museum, and with some remains very interesting. And there is a room in which is stored a mosaic from the Villa of the Papyri, an original mosaic under restoration. So it will be beautiful. I think 10-15 minutes, no more of a visit. And I hope that it will be possible just after the lunch, just at before 2 o'clock. Okay, so we rest in time to go to come back to Naples, or for people schedule a visit to Herculaneum, there will be the second bus for the visit. Thank you.
Grazie di tutto, grazie a Allora da programma c'è adesso questa tavola rotonda conclusiva alla quale prendono parte Silvia Scipioni, Francesco Sirano, Alison Cooley, Roger Macfarlane. Dov'è Roger? Roger? Gianluca? Ma Roger? Dunque, rapidamente, Silvia Scipioni è specialista in manoscritti e tutela del patrimonio librario, è la direttrice della Biblioteca Nazionale di Napoli Vittorio Emanuele III ed è anche responsabile contestualmente dell'Officina dei Papiri Ercolanesi Marcello Gigante, dove coordina le attività di conservazione, studio e valorizzazione della collezione ercolanese. Essendo direttrice della Biblioteca Nazionale di Napoli, per lo statuto del Centro Internazionale dello Studio dei Papiri Ercolanesi Marcello Gigante, è membro di diritto del centro. Francesco Sirano è attualmente, relativamente da pochi mesi, direttore del Museo Archeologico Nazionale di Napoli, ma è stato a lungo impegnato nello studio, nella tutela e nella valorizzazione del sito di Ercolano, del cui parco archeologico è stato direttore per diversi anni. E anche nel caso di Francesco Sirano, essendo direttore del parco archeologico di Ercolano, è diventato membro di diritto, per quel periodo, membro di diritto del Centro Internazionale per lo Studio dei Papiri Ercolanesi, e ha contribuito attivamente, non perché sia presente, ma lo dico sentitamente, ha contribuito attivamente alle attività del centro. Grazie sempre. Alison Cooley è professoressa di storia antica nella University of Warwick ed è presidente della Herculaneum Society, chair della Herculaneum Society, specialista di epigrafia latina e di storia dell'Italia romana, con una attenzione specifica a Pompei e Ercolano. Roger Macfarlane non avrebbe bisogno di presentazione perché è stato già presentato ed è ben noto a tutti. Comunque lo ripeto, se qualcuno non è stato presente nei giorni scorsi, è professore di Classical Studies and Comparative Arts and Letters nella Brigham Young University di Provo, è presidente dell'American Friends of Herculaneum, che è la corrispettiva oltreoceano della Herculaneum Society, è membro da poco, è stato cooptato come membro del Centro Internazionale per lo Studio dei Papiri Ercolanesi Marcello Gigante, noto per il suo lavoro sull'imaging multispettrale applicata ai papiri di Ercolano. Da oltre 30 anni sviluppa tecniche digitali per la lettura dei testi carbonizzati, e poi a livello proprio di interessi scientifici e la sua attenzione è focalizzata su alcuni importanti papiri latini ercolanesi di cui attende alla edizione. E chi vi parla è qui presente in quanto rappresentante del Centro Internazionale per lo Studio dei Papiri Ercolanesi Marcello Gigante, di cui è attualmente presidente. Allora, secondo la scaletta qui prevista nel programma, do la parola, ognuno di noi parlerà per alcuni minuti per presentare, per parlare dell'istituzione che qui rappresenta. Quindi do la parola a Silvia Scipioni.
Grazie. I will try to point out some consideration that I made just this morning hearing the other relators. The Officina dei Papiri is a workshop, actually, and there are many projects in which the papyri, both the open papyri and the scrolls, are involved. And I'm just please note that there is no polemic intent in my words, but I want to share with you some things that I think about these works, because I think that all the news that are coming out from the new researchers must be quickly shared. As director of a library, I must grant access to the information and to the materials of the library to everyone and to the most wide public. And I think that the results of this research must be not confined in a circle of researchers and professors and so on, but they must be shared with everyone want to have access to new what we are doing. And when I think about these projects, sometimes I think that they remain confined within a circle of professionals. And I would like to ask to you, how can we move? What can we do to ensure the knowledge of all these materials to a wider public, even not expert, but maybe curious of all the things that are happening now and all the news that are coming out from the research. It's really a question. I would like to have some answer from you, and if it is an opportunity or not, if we have to wait until all the research are done in the best way and then to publish them, or if we can publish them in the meanwhile, while they are coming out. I really don't know, and I expect some suggestion from you. I can grant, of course, even in the following years, the opportunity to do this kind of research, because we always seen, even today, which are the results and with kind of what kind of how can we read actually better than in the past the written text in the scroll. So I think that the library must go on with this project. But what happens, for example, just to make an example, what happens if other university, other research groups ask for more spaces to do the same works? We don't have so much space. We also must consider that all these researches are expensive. And they have also an impact on environment. So, is it better to share the results immediately with other researchers and with the wide public, or is it better to grant access to separate groups of researchers and let them put on their research in parallel with the results? Maybe can be results, similar results, of course. And in this case, what can we do? How can we choose among researchers that ask the same thing? It's really a question that I want to put on, and I hope you can give me a suggestion about this topic. If there's someone that wants to. Ok, later. Yeah.
Presentare a ognuno la propria istituzione, quindi la parola a Francesco Sirano, direttore del Museo Archeologico Nazionale di Napoli.
Thank you so much. Me too, I will try to speak in English for our audiences. And thank you for the kind invitation. I excuse myself to be present just today at this so important meetings. And I have some slide, maybe, if we can project some slide, because my topics will be to present the new exhibition spaces, yes. May I have? Okay, thank you. The new exhibition space of the Villa dei Papiri in the Naples Archeological National Museum. And as you know, this is, as my colleague just said, there is issues how to show in a proper way the big material, you know, all you know is all you know very well how many statues, 92 statues, and so on. So I will not speak about each particular, of course, but we have issues of dissemination, of course, and we have new needs. Our publics are changed in dramatic way, but I think in the best way, because more and more public come to our museum to see, to appreciate this unbelievable heritage we can now show in the Villa dei Papiri. And also we have some discoveries due to the most recent excavation of the beginning of this century, and also the excavation with the FAI, the Packard Humanities Institute, in the pavilion to the sea, looking at the sea in the Villa dei Papiri area. And so this is the old one exhibition spaces that was opened in the 1973 and based on two main tracks. From one side, there is a rationalist interpretation, so all the material are shown in a very simple way, and the other side is to privilege the context. The context was very important. You know very well, all you know how significant was for all the history of art the studies started by a pivotal paper of Dimitris Pandermalis, who was published in the same years, where he did a first attempt to reconstruct the figural program of the decorative program of the Villa dei Papiri. And this exhibition of the 1973 reflect more or less the level of the knowledge at that period. The new one will be based on that all that data. We assume, as a base, the previous arrangement, and we will continue looking to reach the questions and the taste, and also to enhance this heritage we will show. So, first of all, instead of 4 halls of the museum, we will consecrate 5 halls, and the first one will be as a result of the state of the villa, the new excavations. We arrange also an agreement with the Herculaneum Archeological Park. Who know why? We don't know why. The 2 directors. And we will show temporarily some of the materials coming from the last excavations and the Villa dei Papiri. Then we will have that one is the first hall. And then we will have some highlight about the history of the excavation, the importance of the Villa dei Papiri for in general for the cultural world since the very first discovery and publications. And one hall will be for the papyri research, all the new approach to the research, and that is a space open to also new acquisition, new knowledge that will be improved with these fantastic discoveries you presented yesterday. And this is in collaboration, all the project is a multidisciplinary project in collaboration with the University of Naples, Luigi Vanvitelli, and more other institutions. That is the space for the proper exhibition halls with the status. The new arrangement reflects from one side, the technique of excavation, so it's a suggestion. The visitor will be passed to a space who will suggest as like a tunnel, the Bourbon Tunnel. And from one side, other side, we reconstruct the way we show that the relationship between the statues reflect the newest, the latest discoveries about the arrangement in the Villa dei Papiri, especially concerning the big rectangular peristyle. And so many statues are now recollocated. The most famous example is the dancer, the so-called dancer, which was arranged believed to be in the original position in the square peristyle, and now, according to new studies about the documentation, the ancient data, archive data, that was showed in the rectangular peristyle. This is a general view. All this area is the area you are looking at, is an area who suggests the original position in the rectangular peristyle. So in that way, we will reopen. All the hall will be with climatization, new system of lighting, and I think in that way we will have a better arrangement and a house for the new knowledge. And that is the purpose and the mission of our museum, to be a house of knowledge and a shared knowledge. Thank you.
La parola a Alison Cooley.
Thank you very much. Can I be heard? Is that working? Yeah, great. So, can I just say what a wonderful week it's been, and I am almost converted to become a papyrologist rather than a picographer, but I think it's possibly too late. Is that working now? Yeah, okay. So just to repeat, there we go. I've had a wonderful week, and as I say, I feel like converting from epigraphy to papyrology, especially if we find any Latin documentary papyri, no pressure. So I'm here as the chair of the Friends of Herculaneum Society in the UK, but I feel a slight imposter because I'm not actually officially the chair until November, and all the hard work to date has been done by Professor Bob Fowler, who I know is known to a lot of you, and the Society's been going for over 21 years under his guidance. So I feel that it's my job to take us for the next 21 years, possibly not quite that long. We are a charity whose purpose is to promote public understanding of the site and its environs. And I want to emphasize that our membership is very, very broad. So there are the usual suspects, the academics who are working on Herculaneum, but we also welcome students and members of the public who are just intrigued by not just the papyri, but the site as a whole. And what we do is we have a series of events in the UK. We have online lectures. We also have trips with behind the scenes access to exciting new finds in Roman Britain. So most recently to Colchester, where there's a new discovery of a burial of the Lexden lady with all her burial goods. But as a result of my networking this week, I'm pleased to say that I'm planning a trip next year to the Diamond Light Laboratory near Oxford, which I think would be a fantastic opportunity for the members to get some insight into the scientific work behind these projects. And I'd also like to take us all to Strawberry Hill, the Gothic mansion of Horace Walpole, where not only was there a bronze bust of Caligula on display from Herculaneum, which was a gift to him from Thomas Mann, British ambassador to Florence, but also, interestingly, he particularly treasured a small lacquered box containing carbonized figs from Herculaneum. So I think it's a really exciting opportunity to give a broad appreciation of Herculaneum. We have about 150 members, I think, and they are drawn from international audiences. So very happy if everyone here wants to sign up if you haven't already. And we, as I say, we welcome people with no knowledge or experts in the site. We also organize a biennial trip to Herculaneum and other sites in the Bay of Naples. And the next trip will be late in October 2027. So please put that in your diaries. We also have done various fundraising campaigns for particular aspects of the site to help support. And so, for instance, we fundraised in connection with the restoration of the Collegio degli Agostali a few years back, and we've collaborated with Brent on facilitating administration with the Mellon grant in recent years. So I suppose, again, likewise, I'd like to ask, what can the Herculaneum Society do for you? And if we're at a time where no idea is too silly, too radical, or too exciting, I'd like to think that we could be as visionary as Brent, and maybe it might take the next 21 years to achieve, but I would really like to feel that the society can be an integral part of this international, friendly, collaborative atmosphere, which I think we have all so appreciated this week. Thank you.
Do la parola a Roger Macfarlane.
Thank you, Giovanni. For me also, this has been an exhilarating week. I've loved being here. I'd like the temperature to be a little cooler, but that's okay. Really wonderful.
Actually, it's cooler than London.
Yeah.
It's tropical place.
But it has been exhilarating. And I would like to say at the outset that of the three mission items for the American Friends of Herculaneum, the first one is to promote public awareness of issues pertaining to Herculaneum. I'm excited to go back to my membership base and promote these developments that we've learned about this week. And I can do it with a clear conscience because of the beauty of the collaborative spirit that exists here. It's common for papyrologists to talk about, Brent, make sure I get this right, the Amicitia Papyrologorum, is that what you say? Yeah, okay. And it really does exist in full measure among Herculaneum papyrologists, and its home is Chispe. What a wonderful place this is to work. And it keeps getting better. Now, I think it was in 2003, Silvia, this is beginning to turn the corner towards your question, but I think it was 2003 when the Congresso was held in Vienna, and Mario Capasso responded in a full voice response to the recent development of what we then were comfortably calling multispectral imaging from Brigham Young University. And Capasso, in full authority, but with maybe a bit of concern, rose and spoke about a list of warnings, delivered a list of warnings that we needed to heed as these new images were becoming available. And number one on his list was, scholars must remember that even though they can now study the papyri at home, they must continue to return to the Biblioteca Nazionale for autoscopia. That this wonderful technological advance, I think, was concerning Mario, that scholars maybe would get lazy or they would stop coming to Napoli to actually study the papyri. And what we learned in very short order was that every scholar who requested images from us continued to come to Napoli. There are two reasons for that. The images, because of certain physical shortcomings, they're two-dimensional. It's hard to tell where the lacunae are. Sometimes you're not sure whether you're looking at a shadow or a stroke of ink. Because of that, it's always been necessary to return to the Biblioteca Nazionale. We've always been well received here. But if Capasso had this fear that the technology was going to make the Biblioteca obsolete, it has not been true. And I think over the last 24 years, 23 years, I've seen more activity in the Biblioteca Nazionale every visit that I've come. So I do worry a little bit about the public perception that we will now have a very reliable, very legible scroll where we can read every stroke of ink and can do it in Provo, Utah, or Missoula, Montana, or anywhere without coming here to Naples. My expectation, though, is that people will still come to the Biblioteca Nazionale to confirm their readings in spirit, if not out of necessity. I don't think that this technological advance will undermine the future activity at the Biblioteca Nazionale. I certainly hope it will not. As far as open sourcing goes, I have told many friends over the years, the beauty of Brent Seals, aside from all the other things, is his insistence on open source. And this will be a challenge, I think, for us all going forward. There was something that was getting to me yesterday, somewhere down in here, when Nat was talking about throwing a switch, and tomorrow, he said yesterday, access will be there for people to get, and I was worried, what's that going to do to people who have been working for a long time on the Herculaneum papyri when suddenly there is this general open access? This is something that we'll have to monitor, I think, going forward. I think there's a sort of Wikipedia opportunity ahead of us. Those of us who are of a certain age remember when Wikipedia started coming on, oh, well, there will be no truth anymore, but actually democratic contributions can arrive at truth. And so I think that even though I'm a little bit apprehensive about releasing all this access to these scrolls, I think that we as a democratic community will be able to figure out how to make good scholarship out of this tremendous resource. Sorry to take a little longer on that, but it's something I've been thinking about.
Thank you. Il mio maestro Marcello Gigante ebbe una felice intuizione 57 anni fa nel ideare e proporre ad alcuni colleghi la creazione di questo centro internazionale per lo studio dei papiri ercolanesi, conosciuto anche con l'acronimo CISPE, che si proponeva degli scopi ben precisi. Finalmente far occupare dai papiri ercolanesi il ruolo che meritano negli studi di storia della filosofia antica, perché i papiri di Ercolano conservano dei testi assolutamente sconosciuti per altra via, che erano però sistematicamente, ma non lo diceva nemmeno lui, insomma, non lo dico in senso negativo, voglio dire, erano sistematicamente ignorati negli studi di storia della filosofia antica. Perché? Perché erano testi poco noti nelle edizioni correnti, erano edizioni anche dovute a eccellenti studiosi, ma abbastanza mute. Questi sono testi molto particolari, frammentari. Noi adesso vediamo queste meraviglie tecnologiche per cui un papiro svolto virtualmente, come quello che ci hanno mostrato ieri, è praticamente privo di lacune, mentre siamo abituati a leggere i papiri svolti con il metodo tradizionale, soprattutto quello di Piaggio, che invece presenta frammenti molto mal ridotti anche. E poi anche dare impulso allo studio da parte di giovani. Tanto è vero che uno degli scopi fondamentali del centro fu quello di, mediante l'istituzione di borse di studio annuali, borse di studio mirate, cioè su temi esclusivamente ercolanesi, potessero poi, come è accaduto in molti casi, prendere l'avvio per poi percorrere una strada all'interno nelle istituzioni accademiche di diverse nazioni una strada fruttuosa e ricca di successi. Altro aspetto importante, la creazione di una rivista. La rivista Cronache Ercolanesi, che lui, Gigante, era orgogliosissimo di dire: siamo tra le poche, se non l'unica, tra le pochissime riviste che esce esattamente ogni anno, e anche quest'anno noi siamo è in lavorazione il volume 56 2026. Rivista che raccoglie contributi ovviamente papirologici, ma ha voluto che dal primo volume che ci fosse sempre almeno un contributo archeologico, perché nella visione di Gigante la filologia si intendeva ad ampio spettro, quindi per lui filologia significava anche archeologia, letteratura, cioè non solo studio puro e semplice, tecnico del manufatto. Ora, in questi anni il centro ha ovviamente attraversato varie vicende, ma siamo orgogliosi, consentitemelo, io parlo anche a nome di Francesca Longo Auricchio, che attualmente è la presidente emerita del centro, che per motivi personali non è potuta essere presente oggi, e noi siamo orgogliosi di aver potuto continuare questa felice intuizione di Gigante. Come diceva l'amico Antonio De Simone, è probabile che, io lo chiamo sempre il professore Gigante, non lo posso chiamare Marcello né Marcellino addirittura, io sono convinto, anche io sono convinto che da qualche parte ci sta osservando, ed è ben felice che oggi, a distanza di 25 anni dalla sua scomparsa, il centro è pieno di vita, ha sempre nuove forze, e il nostro gruppo si arricchisce sempre di più di forze giovani, e soprattutto, e lui ha avuto anche questa intuizione, accoglie qualunque intervento della tecnologia, del progresso, che sembra così lontana dagli studi umanistici, soprattutto per uno come Gigante, insomma, di quella generazione. Ma Gigante subito capì l'importanza delle foto dell'ISPART. Allora, perché immediatamente dopo che era finita questa relazione in cui si presentavano i risultati delle foto fatte per i papiri di pietra, carbonizzati, scattò e disse: dobbiamo fotografare anche i papiri di Ercolano. E quindi, poiché i papiri di Ercolano appartengono alla Biblioteca Nazionale Vittorio Emanuele III di Napoli, è continuata ancora di più la collaborazione feconda con questa istituzione, e si ottenne, appunto, si firmò un regolare accordo, e quindi i papiri sono stati fotografati. Quindi voglio dire, noi in questi anni le collaborazioni con istituzioni italiane e non italiane, università, ma anche non solo istituti universitari, continuano. Il centro da anni, da quando il Ministero, allora si chiama Ministero per i Beni Culturali, creò una tabella di istituzioni di alta cultura da finanziare con cadenza triennale, anno per anno, ma con cadenza triennale, il centro è inserito in questa tabella ed è regolarmente finanziato dal Ministero. In anni più recenti la Regione Campania, che ha creato una tabella analoga, ha inserito il centro tra le istituzioni di alta cultura. Il centro pubblica la rivista, pubblica questa serie, questa collezione di testi ercolanesi, anche qui l'intuizione di Gigante, rendere questi testi leggibili come si può leggere un testo di Platone, un testo di Aristotele. E quindi la scuola di Epicuro, che ha raggiunto ormai il numero 21 col volume pubblicato da Claudio Vergara, e continuiamo abbiamo anche introdotto una novità rispetto all'epoca di Gigante. Abbiamo istituito una scuola estiva di papirologia ercolanese che nelle nostre intenzioni avrebbe dovuto avere cadenza biennale, ma l'epidemia malefica del Covid bloccò, dopo la prima e anche i lavori dell'officina. Voi avete visto stamattina, insomma, quei lavori, quindi è praticamente impossibile, insomma, frequentare l'officina, ma stiamo predisponendo la terza edizione che dovrebbe aver luogo nella ultima settimana di settembre, più o meno, dove ci saranno 12 più o meno giovani scelti in base alle domande ricevute, che leggeranno dei papiri che noi assegneremo e cercheranno di trarre un frutto da queste loro indagini e riferiranno alla fine della settimana, e noi negli anni precedenti, nelle occasioni precedenti, abbiamo poi pubblicato questi risultati nel volume successivo delle cronache ercolanesi. Chiudo rapidamente ringraziandovi ancora una volta. Il centro ha organizzato questo convegno con il supporto deciso, notevole della Vesuvius Challenge. Io naturalmente nomino Nat Friedman perché non posso nominare tutti quanti, ma si intende tutta la Vesuvius Challenge, che ci ha supportato e ha accettato, insomma, voglio dire, noi abbiamo deciso che il modo migliore fosse per dare spazio anche a questi nuovi risultati, a questa nuova metodologia che viene sperimentata, ipotizzare la realizzazione di un convegno. Se posso essere un poco superbo, penso di poter dire che ci siamo riusciti, però poi ce lo direte voi. Vi ringraziamo comunque, perché abbiamo avuto tanti colleghi, tanti amici che non vedevamo da tempo, e quindi spero che tutto sia andato bene. Grazie. Allora io credo che la prima risposta, anche perché nessuno di noi ha fatto domande, ma la direttrice ha fatto una domanda, aspetto una risposta, quindi prego.
Grazie un po' a tutti. Maybe I should switch to English so that everybody can understand, especially because all the speakers spoke in English. So I think in general what is interesting from this roundtable is that one of the main themes that I saw is public involvement and engagement and access to data, access to materials, and to try a little bit of brainstorming about what Silvia said. In terms of preliminary publications, I think this is something that can always be done, and Vesuvius Challenge for us was also a nice example in this respect, because we were trying to do systematic and serious research. I'm talking for the papyrological part especially, of course, right now. So even when we produced the paper, we were releasing data before, or preliminary transcriptions or partial transcriptions, because the Vesuvius Challenge had this big engagement role that, of course, was inherently needed by the project. On the other side, we published our papers later with a little bit more time, not so much usually, but still. So I think this is something that can always be done within the framework of a project, having press releases or having preliminary publications that can help with public engagement and also with spreading results. And about the second question you were asking, so what to do when different research groups request access to materials. I think there can be some points that might be helpful. So for example, what role does the library have in that specific request? So is the library a partner in a project? Is the library the institution, or is the library the institution to which that group is simply requesting access? So this could be a first difference, I think. And also another point that might be taken into consideration is what are specifically the requests. So probably...
Sorry, what are?
the specific requests. So would it make sense, and this is an open question, would it make sense to give access to more groups who want to do exactly the same thing with the same technique? Especially if there is one that has already some results, it probably, I'm not sure it makes much sense, but on the other side, I also see that this could limit a little bit the efficiency of research, because different researchers may want to try different ways. So this could be a distinction, you know, if there is someone who is trying to do something with a technique and another group comes in and says, we would like to try the same thing but with a different approach and to produce a slightly different outcome or a different outcome, that could also be a point that could be taken into consideration, but just as a brainstorming.
But sometimes we cannot evaluate the efficiency of a kind of research before it is done.
Talking about efficiency in that case, but just approach. So if, let's say, we are bringing papyri to the synchrotron and using that specific beamline with a specific resolution, and other people come and say, we would like to do exactly the same thing, that probably doesn't make much sense. Yes. Or another consideration might also be if another project would slow down significantly the project that is already ongoing at the library. That is also another possibility. So if there is someone doing digitization of a whole collection, for example, and another group comes in and they want to do exactly the same thing at the same time, that could be difficult, of course, to do in parallel.
But from my point of view, it's not easy for a director of an institution to say yes or no, because everyone
has the right to access.
Yes, has the right to have the access. And the more, all that we have seen in the last days, I think is inspiring other research, maybe no, and that's good, but it could involve experience like the ones you said, just said. Many other research groups coming and asking for similar projects.
Yes.
And in this case, we need a lot of space, because of course the instruments, scanners and so on need space to be stored, and to be used. So it could, I don't think it will happen, because this kind of research is very particular and not so common, but just in case it would be difficult for me to say no, and to give a good reason to say no. That's the problem from my point of view. Just a question.
I would like to address the same question from a museological point of view. And I think as custodians of material culture, we have, the responsibility and the pleasure of presenting the objects in our care to the public. But there are different publics. And I think we have a responsibility to researchers, and I'll return to this, as well as to the general public. And I was very pleased to see Francesco Sirano present the idealized designs of a new installation of the Villa dei Papiri sculptures that are based on research, but presenting that very much to the general public. And I think in the library, there are opportunities to also do more didactic programs with, school children, the general public. I think where the officina is in the building is obviously a challenge. You have display space at the top of the stairs, but you're also not, so much on the touristic circuit, and that's a challenge. And I think what Francesco said about, the museum borrowing finds from the parco and integrating them, is a great opportunity. And so those kinds of collaborations among Neapolitan institutions, I think, present great opportunities for a more public or didactic presentation. When we come to the question of researchers, I respectfully disagree. I think you do have the possibility to judge, to say no. We have a collection that I am not the curator of medieval manuscripts. And they are available to scholars, but they've all been digitized. So when scholars ask to look at them, or anyone asked to look at them in the reading room in real life, and this is something we provide regularly, we always ask, what do you hope to gain through autopsy, which brings risk and wear to the objects that you cannot gain through the material that's published or online? And this isn't a way to keep people out. It's a way to understand the request, to serve better the request, to balance the value of the project against the demands and bandwidth of the institution. And I think the library and its staff, and of course its friends and experts that it knows and trusts, can create without great difficulty a system. And sometimes you say no, or in my case, I've had people approach me through email wanting to see inscriptions that are very fragile, and I've written back and said, yes, we're happy to show you them, but here are the links to where they're scanned. Please tell me what you hope to gain, and then I hear nothing, right? So I think you adjust the bar of access to the public, to the school children. You want a very low bar of access, but it's zero invasive. And the more invasive the access or request is, obviously the greater scrutiny. And I think as custodians, there are times when you say no and it's disappointing, as we all know, to be told no. And sometimes you're told no and you have to come back over and over again or prove the value of your project. But I think that's our responsibility as the custodians of the material. Thank you very much.
But the point is not to evaluate between different levels of research. It's to evaluate between the same level of research. Of course, it's the same in the library. I don't grant access to manuscripts, to medieval manuscripts, to curious, but only to researchers or presented people and of course people with a certain level of experience and able to manipulate them in the right way and so on. And the same is for papyri, of course. But the question is how is possible to say yes or no between group of research that are granting the same level of research? That is the question.
I think we're speaking hypothetically, and I think
yes,
done in real life on a case-by-case basis, because it's never equal. And there are other considerations.
Thank you. Yes.
Sì, Richard.
No, perché anch'io volevo fare una domanda, ma...
Ho visto...
I should like to support very warmly Ken Lepatin's remarks from the point of view of a museum curator. I'm a papyrologist. We're all too acutely aware in our field that there are people, unfortunately, who want to use antiquity for nefarious purposes, to come up with peculiar political doctrines which most of us probably don't find acceptable. And I do think that requests for access at that kind of level to scholarly materials do need to be mediated by people who know the background of what's going on and of what the purpose of the request is, in case it is to damage other scholars or to create propaganda for a particular, normally conspiratorial or obnoxious cause. So I would like to second very strongly what Ken Lepatin has said. Thank you.
Gianluca. Gianluca.
I have a very practical question for Francesco Sirano, and thank you for your presentation about the new disposition of a status in the museum. For archaeologists and also for philologists and papyrologists is a very object of our cult, the map, the Weber plan, the Weber map. And there will be possible, I know, maybe not in this new arrangement, but in the future, there will be possible to put this important, because it's at the moment is the only testimony of the villa at the time of the excavation in 70-50s. And it will be possible to retake this plan and to show in a part of the museum.
I think yes, of course, but we have to study, and in that design is not a good case for show, and with evaluating all the opportunities for the conservation issues, because you know not for the conservation of the paper and so on. But could be, if I may add something for the question, the latter question. Maybe I'm wrong, but if we be confirmed that the National Library will have some space in the new new building of the Albergo dei Poveri, where we know that there is a space for the library in the courtyard. There is a space. Somebody said, maybe, okay, because could be new space. I think here the issues is not enough space in the library and in the National Library, and to have more space in a such important and with the historical values building is not easy, of course, at all, to do something and to transform and to adequate all the system, for example, the climate system and so on. Maybe we have to look at new spaces where you can do the appropriate works, preliminary, in order to have a house, perhaps for the CISPE, perhaps for, I don't know, some in place where you can have a dissemination space for the papyri, and it could be very interesting. We have to discuss this because one of the hypotheses, you know, in this new building is an old building, the building of the 18th century, but the municipality of Naples, together with the Minister of Culture, are restoring this building intended to many purposes. One part of this new building will be the MANN 2, the second place for our museum, and we are studying maybe to move the epigraphical collection, for example, there, and so we could have interesting relationship, we will have an area of the writing. The writing is one of the thing that connect the present to the past in a very easy way, because we are all for this, that we read and we write. And so could be interesting. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. It's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Allora io ringrazio Silvia Scipioni, Francesco Sirano, Alison Cooley e Roger Macfarlane per aver animato questa seduta conclusiva del nostro convegno, e invito il professor Mauro Tulli, l'amico professor Mauro Tulli, a venire qui al tavolo per le considerazioni finali che concludono il nostro convegno. Grazie. Mauro Tulli è anche superfluo dire notissimo studioso di letteratura greca, filosofia, platonica in particolare, e però data la circostanza, lui me lo consentirà, ci conosciamo da tanti anni, no, non esageriamo, mi preme ricordare che è membro del consiglio direttivo del Centro Internazionale per lo studio dei papiri ercolanesi Marcello Gigante ed è condirettore della rivista Cronache Ercolanesi e della della collezione di testi La scuola di Epicuro. Gli do, Mauro Tulli, ecco, aggiungo una considerazione di carattere, diciamo, personale. Mauro Tulli è particolarmente legato a noi per il tramite del suo maestro Graziano Arrighetti, che aveva legami strettissimi con Marcello Gigante, quindi continuare questo rapporto con Mauro Tulli è come se facessimo rivivere il rapporto tra Gigante e Arrighetti. Grazie Mauro.
Grazie e perdonatemi per una persistente raucedine, ma spero che il microfono sia tale da superare ogni problema. È estremamente difficile chiudere nell'arco di un quarto d'ora attraverso la formula del saluto, chiudere un convegno che basta avere sotto gli occhi il programma. È stato di straordinaria complessità e di straordinaria ricchezza. Tanto più difficile se vogliamo, come sarebbe nostra ambizione, intrecciare con parole di saluto considerazioni più generali sulle attività così importanti, così innovative, credo di poter dire in questa fase così rivoluzionaria, come quelle che si stanno sviluppando sui papiri di Ercolano. Il programma ci mostra una successione molto ben organizzata di relazioni radicate profondamente nella tradizione dei nostri studi, ricostruzioni, interpretazioni di opere da tempo indagate con suggestioni che aprono in maniera forte la ricerca verso possibili obiettivi del futuro. Intreccia queste relazioni con relazioni di grandissima forza innovativa per le tecniche oggi così potenti da scardinare e portare su base totalmente nuova il rapporto con i rotoli di Ercolano. So, e vi chiedo scusa, colgo l'occasione per il mio arrivo in ritardo dovuto a tanti aspetti del nostro Ministero, So che la giornata di ieri in particolare è stata di grandissimo per l'attenzione concentrata sull'opera con ogni probabilità stoica, con ogni probabilità di Crisippo, che è stata sottoposta ad analisi. Al culmine dunque questa opera, al culmine le relazioni stesse, così fondate sulle tecniche che abbiamo ascoltato nella prima parte della mattina. Il programma reca doverosamente e opportunamente la scritta International Conference supported by the Vesuvius Challenge, e questa è la struttura distintiva dell'incontro monumentale che abbiamo alle spalle. Senza la protezione e la garanzia, senza il sostegno di Vesuvius Challenge, tutto questo non sarebbe stato. Da qui un grazie enorme a chi ha voluto tutto questo, a chi ha voluto vedere nel nostro Centro Internazionale per gli Studi dei Papiri Ercolanesi l'interlocutore migliore, l'interlocutore privilegiato per tutto questo. Come Giovanni generosamente ricordava, da anni seguo le sorti e do, nei limiti del possibile, il mio contributo alla vita del centro, del CISP, e non posso che spendere alcune parole sul centro, sul CISP, che si irradia, credo di poterlo dire, senza eccessivi veli, si irradia per l'intero arco della mia esistenza. Io ebbi l'onore e la gioia di accompagnare per le vie di Napoli il mio maestro Graziano Arrighetti e di accompagnarlo come Giovanni ricordava poco fa, il Presidente Giovanni ricordava poco fa, di accompagnarlo al lato di un maestro indiscutibile, credo nel mondo intero, per questi nostri problemi, ovvero Marcello Gigante. Più di 50 anni di storia il CISP, in fondo, se ne parlava con l'amico Claudio Bongiovanni, che ho la gioia di salutare qui, in fondo un tratto breve, 50 anni, metà secolo, un po' più di 50 anni. Ma se noi lo osserviamo con una memoria permessa ai più esperti, come si dice con dolce eufemismo, e lo osserviamo ora nel cammino che ha fatto, nella sostanza di quello che ci offre. Davvero uno spazio lunghissimo. Io credo di poter dire che il mondo si è trasformato, il mondo che ruota intorno ai papiri di Ercolano si è trasformato radicalmente, e questo lo si osserva anche semplicemente sfogliando la rivista, le cronache ercolanesi, che nel corso degli anni ha cambiato notevolmente la sua prospettiva. Lo si osserva sfogliando la collana, che nel corso degli anni è stata orientata verso le tecniche che man mano hanno accompagnato le nuove scoperte e che ha quindi oggettivamente trasformato i suoi prodotti. Io credo che possiamo, pur all'interno di questo cammino straordinario, è difficile non dirlo straordinario, possiamo trovare, quindi lodare, una notevole coerenza in base alle stesse intuizioni profonde, acute, la persona era tale, di Marcello Gigante. Ricordiamo alcune di queste intuizioni formulate quasi con il codice degli aforismi, ovvero l'ideale sarà non aprire i rotoli, l'ideale sarà riprendere gli scavi nella villa, intuizioni alle quali con la sua impareggiabile tenacia faceva seguire una militanza giorno dopo giorno perché questo avvenisse. Ricordava Giovanni poco fa la questione delle fotografie, termine banale oggi in relazione a tutto quello che vediamo, e tuttavia nel capire che le fotografie avrebbero portato ad un futuro completamente diverso, Marcello Gigante apriva la strada verso queste realtà che oggi noi osserviamo, che ci sorprendono, ci emozionano, ma soprattutto che ci danno dei risultati profondamente nuovi e profondamente concreti. Ecco, mi permetto, proprio partendo da questi presupposti, mi permetto di rilanciare un aspetto che in Marcello Gigante, almeno al mio sguardo, nella mia memoria, osservava con particolare attenzione. Marcello Gigante è stato per me di fondamentale importanza perché mi ha aperto perdonate questa componente biografica, mi ha aperto le porte della Germania, perché mi ha consentito, e qui naturalmente il mio contatto, la mia amicizia profonda con Tiziano che mi ascolta è immediatamente da ricordare, e mi ha consentito attraverso la Humboldt quel rapporto forte con la Germania che poi mi ha sostenuto, direi, per tutta la vita. Bene, proprio dal rapporto con la Germania, che ha visto Marcello Gigante a sua volta inserito nella grande famiglia Humboldt subito dopo la creazione, subito dopo la guerra della Stiftung, bene, da quel rapporto Marcello Gigante derivava, così radicato nella tradizione delle scienze dell'antichità in Germania, derivava questa idea unitaria delle scienze dell'antichità. Possiamo usare nomi anche a noi cari, nomi dell'Istituto di Colonia, Altertumskunde, nomi che raccolgono tutti i possibili rapporti con il mondo antico. Ecco, questo enorme progresso che noi oggi osserviamo non deve farci dimenticare questa esigenza di fondo, cioè raccogliere tutte le nostre energie in funzione di uno sguardo complessivo che, a nostro parere, il termine stesso di Altertumskunde conserva, le scienze dell'antichità. Non dimentichiamo che in fondo il nostro rapporto con i rotoli di Ercolano, così piccoli e così problematici come sono, può essere considerato come un momento fondamentale, un banco di prova proprio per la conservazione del concetto di Altertumskunde, perché su questi oggetti così piccoli, così delicati, convergono di necessità le scienze dell'antichità. Abbiamo osservato, anche sfogliando il programma, la cosa è evidentissima, naturalmente la papirologia, ma poi la filologia, ma poi l'archeologia, la filosofia, uno dei punti focali subito evidenziato da Marcello Gigante, come Giovanni ricordava, la museologia, ne abbiamo parlato poco fa. Ecco, tutto questo è naturalmente la storia che Napoli ha favorito attraverso un'altra struttura di fondamentale importanza nella vita del mio maestro, cioè il Croce, ha favorito come forse nessun altro luogo in Italia. Bene, impegno necessario per le scienze dell'antichità. Il mio invito è a non dimenticare questo enorme spazio nel quale inseriamo le nostre energie, e questo è tanto più vero nel periodo di oggettiva crisi che oggi noi viviamo. Io in questo so di avere uno sguardo privilegiato nella negatività, uno sguardo sul sistema accademico nazionale che il Consiglio Universitario Nazionale mi permette, ed è uno sguardo che favorisce un lamento sulla normativa, un lamento soprattutto sulle risorse per l'area umanistica sempre in crisi. Se vogliamo tentare una resistenza, se vogliamo tentare un balzo in avanti, l'unità è un processo di fondamentale importanza. L'unità delle scienze dell'antichità, quindi da necessità teorica, da necessità pragmatica della ricerca, diventa anche una necessità politica di autoconservazione e di rilancio. In questo mi permetto di dire che l'Università di Napoli, la Federico II, va verso un momento estremamente delicato. I nostri auguri al candidato, che sembra in ogni caso favorito, sono auguri intensi e forti, proprio perché il candidato esprime molto bene nella sua biografia, nella sua ricerca, esprime molto bene nella scelta politica di fondo la tradizione umanistica della Federico II. Ma oltre la Federico II sappiamo bene che sul territorio della Campania agiscono tante altre università che hanno sempre avuto una sensibilità massima nei confronti di Ercolano e dei problemi e delle virtù che Ercolano ci mostra. Naturalmente mi riferisco in primo luogo alla limitrofa Università Vanvitelli, ricordo di nuovo naturalmente la presenza dell'amico Claudio, ma il mio pensiero va ovviamente alla potente energia messa a disposizione del centro da Gianluca Del Mastro. Ora, io nell'osservare il programma, nell'osservare questa platea ricca in una sede splendida, non posso non mettere in rilievo due aspetti forse in contrasto, ma in apparente contrasto. Ecco, nell'accostarmi a questo convegno, che poi ha tutto il sapore del congresso, per mole, per ricchezza, per durata, e questo sentimento l'ho condiviso nei rapidi dialoghi di ieri sera e di questa mattina, non ho potuto non cogliere la memoria forte di un passato che poi non è lontanissimo, non è neanche vicinissimo, e quella memoria di un passato che ha trovato proprio in Marcello Gigante il suo punto di riferimento e che nasce da un congresso che i più esperti tra noi, di nuovo un dolce eufemismo, ricordano, se non altro per racconti, ma poi anche per presenza reale, ovvero il congresso sull'epicureismo del 68, Parigi. Fu al ritorno da quel congresso, come con commozione mi è stato più volte raccontato, che l'idea del CISPE venne fuori tra due figure che rischiamo di annoiare un po' i nostri giovani, ma che potremmo indubbiamente considerare dioscuri di tutta questa avventura, appunto il mio maestro Graziano Righetti e Marcello Gigante. Graziano Righetti lavorava all'edizione di Epicuro, aveva lavorato, andava verso la seconda edizione di Epicuro e tra i due si realizzò un'intesa di notevole impatto. Naturalmente non parlo della loro straordinaria amicizia, ma di notevole impatto. E Marcello Gigante seppe poi favorire questo suo progetto con iniziative poderose di straordinaria importanza, forse al culmine 19-26 maggio 1993, il congresso sull'epicureismo greco e romano. Ecco, io ho avvertito la memoria di tutto questo, lo dico con commozione, lo dico con gratitudine estrema. ho avvertito quel respiro profondamente internazionale che il CISPE ha sempre tutelato e che ora, grazie a Vesuvius Challenge, è tornato fortemente ad affermarsi. Ne avevamo bisogno, eravamo certi che potesse accadere, ne avevamo bisogno, e tutto questo è davvero molto molto bello da osservare. Dicevo due aspetti tra loro in apparente contrasto, perché da un lato quindi queste tradizioni, questa memoria che torna a fiorire di luce splendida, dall'altro lato una presenza che questa platea conferma e che il programma largamente ribadisce, di giovani, quindi di un futuro immanente, di un futuro pronto, perché già potentemente attrezzato a prendere in mano tanta eredità. Giovani anche sapientemente chiamati dagli organizzatori nelle varie funzioni, relatori, presidenti di sedute, giovani che tornano a vedere, come è stato nel corso dei decenni, in Napoli e nello studio dei Papiri di Ercolano, un campo privilegiato di interesse, un campo privilegiato di ricerca. Giovani che si muovono sul territorio nazionale, giovani che si muovono in Europa, giovani che si muovono nel mondo e che seguono con attenzione, con curiosità, forse anche con qualche timore, le vie di quella che noi chiamiamo in maniera un po' pomposa diadoché, la trasmissione, la staffetta, quella staffetta della quale abbiamo più volte parlato fin qui, che per noi si dirama proprio dai nomi di Marcello Gigante e di Graziano Arrighetti. Bene, lasciatemi spendere due parole, è tempo assolutamente di chiudere, approfitto della sua assenza qui, proprio per non crearle disagio, due parole sull'amica carissima Francesca Longo. Francesca Longo, credo che davvero, possiamo dirlo ora che non c'è, abbia svolto in questa transizione verso il mondo nuovo una funzione di incredibile efficacia e di enorme, non scontata bravura. Francesca Longo si è trovata nelle mani, non improvvisamente, ma quasi, un'eredità straordinaria, enormemente difficile da gestire, in una fase di transizione per gli studi sul mondo antico in Italia estremamente problematica anche sul piano istituzionale, una fase di transizione estremamente problematica all'interno della stessa Federico II. La sua fermezza, la sua dignità, la sua dedizione, la sua convinzione tenace, ecco, tutte queste virtù l'hanno portata ad assolvere il compito in maniera, al mio sguardo, davvero commovente. E sono davvero felice di poter constatare, credo di poter condividere questa gioia con voi, che il compito è riuscito ed è riuscito benissimo. Perdonate queste parole piuttosto colloquiali, ma è riuscito benissimo, nel senso che Francesca Longo ha raccolto, ha conservato, ha rilanciato, ha consegnato al futuro con un cammino che, data la sua persona, si esiterebbe a definire con la parola che invece merita, un cammino eroico, che ha portato il CISP da una dimensione degli anni 70, 80, 90, una dimensione molto lontana dall'attuale, alla dimensione attuale, e ha portato il CISP fino a questa splendida reggia. Naturalmente questa diadoché passa poi per i nomi dell'amico Giovanni, attuale presidente del CISP, legatissimo, come ben sapete, a Francesca Longo, attraverso i nomi di Giuliana Leone, credo di poter dire carissima e antica amica, che ha sempre con particolare affetto e con grande sagacia, con grande equilibrio seguito le vicende del centro, e arriva ai nomi più giovani. Ne menziono solo due, con la consapevolezza naturalmente di compiere gaffe, ovvero figure a me legate anche biograficamente, come Marzia D'Angelo e Federica Nicolardi. L'ultimo nome, Federica Nicolardi, non ne farei altri, proprio perché ho la ferma convinzione che il CISPE, attraverso lei, attraverso Marzia, ma attraverso lei, ora andrà con un grandissimo volo verso obiettivi sempre più ambiziosi e sempre più potentemente internazionali, con la coscienza di questa enorme tradizione che giunge dal passato e che fa del CISPE oggi, lo dico pensando a quell'area 10 che rappresento al CUN, quindi con lo sguardo il più possibile ampio che in questo momento possa avere, fa del CISPE uno dei punti di riferimento oggettivamente più alti della ricerca sul mondo antico in Italia e nel mondo. Grazie.
Ringrazio calorosamente, ma non ci sarebbe bisogno di parole, anche perché le parole poi di solito in questi casi sono le solite, ma sono le solite parole, ringrazio, no, è la verità per quello che ha detto lui, ha detto Mauro e quello che avevo anche detto io, cioè c'è questo rapporto ormai da anni. E naturalmente riferiremo a Francesca, che è molto addolorata di non poter essere presente in particolare oggi, e riferiremo a Francesca queste bellissime parole. Io vi ringrazio ancora di cuore a nome di tutti. Naturalmente la prima è Federica, ma non per altri motivi, ma perché è quella con la quale si è partiti con l'idea di organizzare questo convegno. Quindi grazie veramente dal profondo del cuore a tutti quanti voi per questa bellissima settimana che ci avete regalato, e adesso come sempre si conclude con... Siamo epicurei, ma fino a un certo punto, insomma, andiamo a pranzo. Grazie a tutti.